Are you concerned about the environment for your sake and your children's sake? Well, let me tell you, help is on the way. We have with us today Miss Albia Miller, president and co-founder, along with her two young daughters, of Global Harmony, a public awareness organization which informs through ecological accountability, humanitarian outreach, and public awareness. Would you please welcome Ms. Albia Miller? You made me aware of an interesting book as well that shows us that job creation and the environment can and do exist. It's free, it's from the California Department of Conservation, and has all the important phone numbers and addresses. Now then, as citizens of this planet, you need their help, and as an organization, they need yours. Albia, how can people contact you?
We urge your support in keeping this program on the air so that we may connect with you, various and profound speakers and handouts and flyers. You just call the number that Paul is going to give you and the address, and we will write you and send you information.
Most of us scientists are available to go around and talk to various community groups, explaining to them the alternatives of using energy other than nuclear or now even the fossil fuels. So it's a very progressive organization, and I think that they have done a great job in the past, and I would recommend that most of your listeners encourage them to keep up their good work.
Yes, we could have speakers at our schools, our high schools, and inspire the college students to become more involved in alternative fuels and environmental friendly activities that they could major in at school. And then we could have more grants for that too. As their interest raises, we're going to have more funding. Now, they've published things like this from their 113 Nobel laureate research scientists, world scientists warning to humanity. They have many publications, the UCS, and this is their magazine. It's volume 15, 1993, Say Goodbye to the Gas Pump. And that's one of Dr. Swag's most interesting topics of conversation is the alternative fuels. But we've had him speak on other programs concerning that. So we want to see what he would like to talk about today. And he's done so much extensive work by invitation. Mobil Gas Company invited him to speak on clean air, and he wants to tell the story about that.
Well, it's interesting that the California Air Resources Board wanted to help us cut down the air pollution, and one of the strategies they had was to develop a cleaner gasoline. And the CARB, California Air Resources Board, made a specification of what they wanted in the gasoline, which would make it less producing for ozone.
Now, you told me an interesting story about something the oil industry was going to try. They were going to put a catalytic converter on the front of the automobile. Could you tell me a little more about that?
Yes, this was something that was done just about a year ago. In the laboratory, they had something to put in the grill in front of their fan, and they were able to see that some of the high levels of ozone in the ambient air of South Coast Basin was reduced because it was like a converter, reduced the ozone to...
Hello and welcome to your town. Today I am so honored to have with me Ms. Nancy Perlman. She is probably the most organized lady in the environmental world that I have ever met. And she's come in my life several times at the Air Quality Management Board, and I just wasn't paying that much attention to what she had to say and offer. If I had, I would be writing letters from her newsletter because she is so timely and updated on all the actions we need to take. So Nancy, could you please tell us how you came to appreciate nature so much that you want to connect all of the people with it? Welcome.
Oh, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here with dedicated activists like yourself. I want to point out that the Compendium newsletter is just one aspect of our nonprofit organization, Educational Communications. I coordinate the environmental projects for that volunteer group, and the Compendium newsletter literally is just that, a compilation of short articles, calendar events, book reviews, materials and resources, action alerts, bulletin board items, editorials, telling people where they can take action, where they can write letters on current ecological issues. But that was an outgrowth of the Ecology Center of Southern California, which I founded in 1972. And that's a regional conservation organization, and we're always delighted to have more people get involved to do more work. In addition to that, I am a host and producer of the longest running environmental series in the country. Not longest running in terms of time, it's a half-hour weekly program, but it's been around for over 19 years. And it's a series that has in-depth interviews with key leaders, scientists, authors, and other people who are doing important work in conservation arena. Outgrowth of the Environmental Directions radio series came my Eco News television series, and it too is the longest running program of its kind, which is a weekly half-hour show about the ecological crisis, and that is now in its 13th year, and that show can be seen everywhere. So in addition to watching your program, hopefully they can tune in to Eco News as well, and I cover all sorts of environmental problems, from overpopulation to wilderness preservation, wildlife protection, pollution management and elimination, how you can do individual personal actions, and how the international community can make important policy changes. And as you said, all of this came out of my love of the environment. What really happened was I realized that the plants and the animals don't speak English. Now, this should be an obvious thing, but they don't know how to speak English or any other human language for that matter. And we have a problem that we don't know how to speak in cat or dog or tiger or bird or whatever other language that they communicate in. So we have an interspecies problem at home. They aren't just being managed or harvested, they're being wiped out, eliminated. We have species becoming extinct every day, and they aren't screaming out for us to hear. Somebody had to do that. And I think it all came out of my love of the wild, of nature. You know, the city which I live in, I'm in the heart of Los Angeles, which is a good base for all my international work, which I do, for example, with Project Ecotourism, another one of our projects.
So before there's no dinner for dinner, Nancy's group will help us find out which issues are important for us to write about.
Well, every issue is important. That's the hardest problem I find in putting the newsletter together, because each issue, it's a bi-monthly, I have to go through volumes of newsletters and magazines from so many of the new organizations that have been created. In fact, I have over 6,000 groups listed in my directory of environmental organizations.
6,000?
And that's just the tip of the iceberg, really, because I just list the ones that I have made some sort of contact with at some point. It's sort of my Rolodex in print. And there are thousands more. I went to the Rio Summit in 1992 in Rio de Janeiro, the United Nations Conference on Environment and Development, and just the attendees there were about 30,000 delegates, both to the official government forum as well as to the NGO, the non-governmental, nonprofit citizen organizational forum. And those 30,000 people all represent different groups and organizations concerned about the environment, but it's impossible to put everybody into a directory. So each one of these people communicates with me and tells me what's going on, what issues need attention. And it's very hard to decide what to cover, because so much. There's not a single open space left, particularly here in Southern California, that doesn't need our attention and protection and preservation. I mean, you have right here in Riverside County the whole Murrieta Creek, which must be preserved and protected. We need to stop this expansion of the subdevelopments that are going on in this arena, because this area has beautiful farmland and ranch land, and yet they're just paving it over the way they did Orange County. Orange County used to have orange groves. Orange County used to have walnut groves, and now you can't find a single orange grove for how the county was even named.
And we have a very critical area with the El Sobrante landfill expansion from Los Angeles. They want to drive these large trucks out here and leave their deposits.
Oh, landfills are just a disgrace on the landscape. I mean, at some point, there's something that's going to be left over, but obviously, as I saw outside of the studio here, you don't have just one bin called recycle where you put your bottles and your cans, but you've got the bag, the can for the plastic bags, you have the cans for the hazardous materials like
The
paints, which unfortunately we
styrofoam.
have to use, the styrofoam, which we shouldn't be using, but we all bring home from the restaurants and we all are stuck
Yes.
with. I mean, we have to make some changes in terms of the resource consumption that we have and the patterns that we have. I get disappointed when I see in the city the large trash bins that are not for the recyclables, and the recycling bin is the small one. It really should be the other way around. Now,
It is in my house.
well, you are the ecological example, and that's the kind of example everybody needs to follow. We need to make environment convenient. We need to make environmental action standard procedures so that it's not even thought about. When somebody goes to somebody else's home, you don't think about asking where the trash can is. You ask, where's the bin for that particular metal or plastic or aluminum or glass?
That's up to the cities to have the trash
Right.
separators.
And the compost is real important. Organic garden, I saw one outside the studio as well. And not enough of us do it. I feel guilty that I still have a little of the traditional grass lawn. I admit, I have dedicated my life to environmental work and try to be an example for environmental action. But I'm not perfect. I do drive a car. I try and drive the best car I can with the best mileage. I wish that the manufacturers would provide me with a car option that I could buy a car that has 100 miles per gallon. I'm stuck buying the one with 30 miles. You mentioned, for example, locally a landfill. Every community has landfills, and they're always ready to expand. Instead, you've got to push and fight the cities and counties to expand their resource recovery programs rather than their landfills. On the state level, we have to really stop this freeway mania. I mean, they consistently want to build more freeways, and that's not the solution. The money on the federal level as well should be going into all transit systems. Instead, we have money going into airports instead of rail. We have money going into freeways and roads instead of bus service. Then on the land preservation area, there is no question that people should be writing to their elected representatives, to particularly the Congress people and the senators in Congress at the federal level, to get more wilderness set aside.